Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Insight to the End Times. I'm Dr. Brian Scott, and we are continuing our study on end time events with our reference being 2 Timothy chapter 3. Paul told Timothy that in these last days, perilous times would come. And so we've been examining what he means by perilous times. He gives us many indications here in the subsequent verses. But perilous in and of itself refers to exceedingly dangerous times. And we are living in exceedingly dangerous times. I'm still a newspaper guy. I've always read the newspaper since I was just a little fella. And I've never got out of that habit. I was just going through some articles I had cut out of one of our national papers before I came into the studio. And it covers a period of about 4 weeks of articles that I have yet to finally study and read at length. But the headlines are all perilous. They're very, very, very perilous, very dangerous headlines. We're living in the last days. And if you've been following us for any length of time, here we are in the month of May 2026. We have been recording these podcasts now for over 4 years. In fact, today we're in the 950 range in our podcasts. So we've looked at a lot of events. We've looked at a lot of scripture. In fact, we've looked at some scripture several times over. The reason being things are changing rapidly. And what we said 2 years ago or 3 years ago has intensified, tremendously intensified. So we're in 2 Timothy, as I said, chapter 3. Paul says, know this, in the last days, perilous times will come. And he's referring to the last days being the equivalent of the last stop on a delivery of goods to retailers, to stores, to supply companies. That was occurring back in those days, back when Paul was alive. So most of the deliveries were by boat, by ship. And they were across the Mediterranean Sea. And they would stop at island after island and outpost after outpost. When he says last days, he's talking about the very last stop. There are no other stops. This is the very last one. So he's saying, these are the last days. We're at the very end. There are no other days. We're getting to the very end of the end of the end.
Hey, this is Matt from Insights to the End Times. I wanted to interrupt just for a quick moment and ask you to do us a huge favor. If you could go ahead and hit the like, share, or subscribe button, it would allow us to make sure that you stay up to date with all the latest videos from Dr. Scott. Now back to the episode.
Let's continue our study today. We started on Monday earlier this week, looking at verse number 3. And there are a number of things here in the verse. It says people are going to be unloving, unforgiving, slanderers, without self-control, brutal, and despisers of good. Those are just a few elements in that one verse. We started looking at what it means to be brutal or brutality on Monday, and we're continuing that today. So let's get into it today. First and foremost, to define the word brutal, we might say it's fierce, or it's cruel, it's savage, it's harsh. Things are uncivilized, violence, viciousness. Sounds like the newspaper to me. Sounds like the evening news. Things are really, really out of control in our life that we're living. Now, I want to look at some things that are occurring here in North America, particularly here in our country of Canada, where we have some very, very aggressive forms of activity attacking the sanctity of life. One of them is called MAID, M-A-I-D. That stands for Medical Assistance in Dying. It's a form, we could say, of euthanasia, where people don't die a natural death under this program. They are assisted in dying owing to a number of factors. It began in Canada in the year 2016. And it was initially provided by our government and sanctioned by our government to allow people who were in terminal illnesses, like there's no chance whatsoever of recovery, or people who were in unimaginable pain, like excruciating, non-relenting pain, to sign up and consent to being assisted in dying. Now, I guess in one sense that would make sense for someone who's in that state. But as soon as you get the foot in the door, the rest of the body wants to follow. In other words, they start to expand the qualifications. And we got to the place where people could say, I have no hope in living. My life is hopeless. It's a mess. I'm under severe stress. I'm under severe mental anguish. I am suffering. And doctors would sign off on this. Now, not every doctor, but we have quite a number of doctors across Canada who are signed up for the program and are willing to participate in the program. Somewhere in the vicinity of just around 2,000 doctors have said, yes, I'll participate. Now, the eligibility for MAID has been expanded over and over again, and it gets wider and wider, and there's debate going on right now. We're in the year 2026. There's debate going on whether it will be extended to include people who are suffering from some form of mental issues, mental disease, mental attack, mental stress, whatever the case may be. And it's also being debated as to lowering the age that people would be applicable or able to apply. So I've heard that it may be going down into the teenage years. And it keeps being debated in our government circles, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I just read a report recently. In fact, it was some time ago, but I've seen reference to it once again, where one or two doctors, at least one doctor, has performed the MAID procedure to assist a person in dying over 400 times, and says this brings some of the greatest gratification to their life as a medical practitioner, because it is serving the person who desires to be released from the pain, the suffering, the terminal illness, et cetera, et cetera. I can't comment on that from a medical point of view, but I can comment on it from this point of view. That, to me, is not what doctors sign up for. As a rule, they sign up and take a creed to provide life, to do everything they can to provide life. Anyways, moving right along, here's the problem we have reached in Canada. We have surpassed most other nations who have some form of medical assistance in dying. This program seems to have started over in the Netherlands, in the countries of Sweden and Holland and so on, and gained a foothold there, and it began to expand into other countries. We got a hold of it here in Canada, and it's just absolutely skyrocketed in Canada. Since 2016, which is like 10 years ago, I should say it is 10 years ago, but from 2016 to 2024, a period of, say, 8 years, Canada's recorded over 76,000 MAID deaths. Now, are all of them terminal illness? Don't know. Are all of them unimaginable pain and suffering? Don't know. Do they include some who just simply gave up? Don't know that either. it would be interesting to know how serious all of these cases were. But here in Canada, in 2024, compared to 2023, we've seen about a 7% increase in the number on an annual basis. And in fact, in 2024, which is the last year I've got numbers for, we had 16,499 people submit to MAID. So 76,000 had taken their life by way of MAID up to the end of, say, 2024. We're in 2026. The statements that I've been reading indicate that we will likely hit 100,000 people by sometime in 2026. 2024's number of 16,499 represented 5.1% of all deaths in Canada during the year. So what am I saying to you? These are perilous times. I have had a number of people that I know, some of them have been related to church members that we look over and pastor, who have gone into the hospital being elderly type people. They've gone into the hospital for something that needed to be dealt with, and they were provided forms to sign up for MAID. And I've read reports where people have been in the hospital, have been admitted, are in a room, they're in the bed. The people come in with forms and say, would you sign these forms for us, please? When they read the form and they see they're consenting to MAID, they get up, get dressed, and run out of the hospital. Folks, this is euthanasia. And it's a question, a moral question, it's a spiritual question as to whether or not it's something that we should or should not have operating at the level that it's currently operating. It's a pretty serious situation. Over 1,800 doctors as of 2024 had signed up to participate in the MAID program. I have friends here in our own city who have indicated to me that there are many more MAID deaths occurring in our local hospitals here than we're ever made aware of. And that the numbers would stagger us if we knew how many were actually submitting to MAID. From time to time in the newspaper, where obituaries occur, especially on the weekend paper, the Saturday paper, locally speaking, I will read where a husband and wife selected or elected to both exit the earth, pass away by way of a MAID program, medical assistance in dying. It's a major thing. It's an issue, major issue. So I would suggest to you that in some cases it may be a godsend, but in other cases it's defined here by the word brutality, fierceness, savage, violent. Because I personally would not suggest to you that everybody, medically speaking, would qualify for it. This is a serious issue. Here's another situation we're dealing with, not only in Canada, but around the world. And that is the attack on gender. And we call it genderfication. We call it gender confusion. We have elements of it which are transgender. We have transhumanism issues, and so on. These are severe cases of situations as well, but in a whole different sense. It wasn't all that long ago that if you looked up the word gender in the dictionary, it would tell you there are two genders, male and female, which corresponds with the words in the scriptures. God created man, male and female, created he them. And we're approximately 6,000 plus years since creation occurred in Genesis chapter 1. For the most part, I would say it's 2026. And just with simple math, not intending it to be 100% accurate or provable by way of mathematical formulas or anything, but let's just say it simplistically, we've had 6,026 years since creation. Just to illustrate a point, I'd suggest to you that almost all of the 6,000 initial years, we were working on a basis of two genders. Now, I am really oversimplifying, so please don't take me to task of my numbers. But for the last 26 years, or the last couple decades, all of a sudden we got all these additional genders. And so we have to be really careful how we refer to people. We've seen what I would call the, once again, I'm pulling some stuff out of the air because things change so rapidly in these areas, but let's call it the woke movement has introduced pronouns to us. Now, we've always had pronouns, but we never were confused by them. A male was a he or a him. A female was a she, etc., or her. And if you had a group of people together, they were they or them. But now we have what are called preferred pronouns. And if a male says they want to be referred to as they, them, instead of he, him, we can be in trouble if we refer to them as he, him. It's very confusing. And really, I don't get it. But there's a lot of things anymore I don't get. Things have changed so rapidly. A person now let's talk about students, high school students, as a for instance. You know, teenagers, they walk into school, they are born male, et cetera. They walk into school and they declare to their friends, today I'm a female. It's just a statement. I've heard some people say they've walked into school and said, I'm a cat, or I'm a dog. And they want to be treated as such. And if you don't treat them that way, then you're in trouble. The government supports this. Especially our Canadian government really supports this. And you almost have no idea what you can and can't say anymore because people have such gender fluidity. I recently read that there are likely over 100 different genders that are being used today, and so on and so forth. So what we're seeing in the last little bit has been a pushback on this. And the pushback has said we're not going to allow identification just simply on the basis of identification. So a male cannot come into school or any other setting, into sports or anything else, and say I'm a female and I want to play in the female team, or I want to use the girls' locker room. I want to use, and so on and so forth. And that's getting a lot of feedback and a lot of pressure. Because in these days, we have so many social interest groups and cultural interest groups and so on and so forth, and they're all coming at things from different directions. These are perilous days. We're living in very perilous days. So how in the world can we read these scriptures and not come to the conclusion that, yes, we are in the last days, because we're seeing these events everywhere we look. And it is extremely perilous because last illustration, a bus driver. True story, reported recently in the papers. Bus driver driving his route slows down. There's a woman on the sidewalk. He rolls he opens the door and makes a comment to her that she is beautiful, something along that line. In the past, 50, 60, 70 years, that would be a compliment. She said he discriminated against me. He sexually made a wrong reference to me, and she brought an action against him, and he was fired as a bus driver. And you go, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. What do we say anymore? Anyways, I hope I brought something to light to identify the fact these are perilous times, these are brutal days, these are very, very difficult days to know how to navigate because we're in the last days. We're coming back on Friday. We're going to wrap up our study on the brutal issues here found in verse number 3, 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 3. Thanks for joining us today. Appreciate having you. Bye for now.
Hey, thanks for watching this episode of Insights to the End Times. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to get notified every time we release a new video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right over here. Now, if you'd like to catch the previous episode, you can do that right here, or the entire playlist is right above right here. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next episode of Insights to the End Times.